And we are live. Welcome, mystery and thriller fans, to our kickoff event for 2022. And I am thrilled to welcome back Allison Brennan here to give us the inside scoop on her brand new red hot book, The Sorority Murder. Yay! Allison, welcome back. Tell us about this book.
Thank you so much, Sarah, for having me, and thanks Murder by the Book for collaborating with you. That's so exciting to hear about that. The Sorority Murder just came out. It came out last week, and it should be available. My kids have driven around to all the Barnes and Nobles to make sure it's there in the greater Phoenix area. So because I've been writing my next book, so I send them out, hey, go make sure it's on the shelves. Actually, my mom is really good about that too. And because she'll tell them, hey, have you put the book out? I don't see it out here. Could you, that's my daughter. Could you make sure you check the back? So the Sorority Murder is the first book of a new series featuring a former U.S. Marshal, Regan Merritt. And it's set in Flagstaff, Arizona. At least the first book is. So it started as, hey, I had this character. She was a former U.S. Marshal, and I was trying to think of what was the best story for her. Flagstaff is home to Northern Arizona University. My daughter, my fourth kid, she looked at NAU to go there before settling on U of A. So I got to go walk around the campus. I love Flagstaff. It's such a historic town, and there's so much history there. And so I'd already been up there, and it was on my mind. And we get things every week from the universities. Hey, come here, come here. And so I said, oh, I'll set it on the college campus. And what am I going to do? I have to have a murder. Dead girl. Well, what if I did a podcast? And so all these ideas started coming together, and it ended up where I had a character, Lucas Vega, who is doing a podcast called The Sorority Murder about a cold case of a girl from a local sorority who was killed 3 years ago. He had met her when he was a freshman and she was a senior. She was killed, her body dumped in a man-made lake. And he uncovered what he thought was new evidence when he interned at the morgue. And so he decided to do this podcast when the police went listen to him. And he's trying to put together all the clues to figure out what happened to her 3 years ago. And that's it just jumped at me. And I said, okay, I'm going to write it. I didn't know what was going to happen. I didn't know anything else. I just kind of put these two characters together and see where it led.
Well, where it led is real good, Allison. And I can't wait to get every delicious detail. But first, I just want to welcome everyone who is watching with us on Facebook, watching on YouTube, Murder by the Books channels, my channels, our private Facebook group for mystery and thriller fans. We're all are welcome. Wherever you are, you're in the right place. This is the right time. And as you know, it's your time to ask Allison anything. So if you've been here before, you know how it works. And if you're new, we're so happy to have you. Thank you so much for all the hearts up on Facebook, you guys. We love you too. And any questions you have for Allison about the sorority murder, about her writing process, about anything, get them going in the comments. Annissa Joy, welcome to the conversation. Always a pleasure to have you, ma'am. She says, hello, Sarah and Allison. Great to have you. Annissa is with Friends and Fiction and has done a podcast with Jenna Bush Hagar. She's amazing. Great to have you, Annissa. Leslie is giving us her signature Canadian hello, joining us from Canada. Welcome, Leslie. Always a pleasure to have you. Annissa says the book was so good. Yay, Annissa, I totally agree. Thank you for letting us know. Anissa's adding that she thought the use of the podcast was brilliant. I totally agree. It felt so timely and fresh. And so many of us mystery and thriller lovers also listen to true crime podcasts. So it felt so familiar and so fresh and so fabulous. Erin is saying hi. She's really looking forward to reading this book, Allison. Erin, welcome to the conversation. Great to have you. So first of all, I just want to let y'all know the book is out and you can grab your copy tonight from Murder by the Book. Here's the link. I'm putting it right in the comments. So let us know what questions you have for for Allison. Kathy is saying, hi, it just jumped at me. I love those kinds of stories. Yeah, that was so cool to hear that was the backstory to how you ended up writing about this. Jennifer is saying she really is enjoying listening to your new book. Are you linking the series to the Lucy Kincaid series? And thank you in advance for answering her question.
Well, I'm hoping or planning to keep Regan Merritt completely separate from Lucy, but I will never say never. I never thought I would bring Lucy and Max together in a book, and they ended up doing my Maxine Revere series, which had 5 books in it, and then my Lucy Kincaid series, which so far has 17 books. I brought Max and Lucy together in 2 of those books, and so I don't currently have any ideas for them, but again, it all has to do with if I get the right idea at the right time and I can pitch it to my editor and she thinks it's great. So it's just, I don't know, but no plans right now.
Well, but there are plans to, so this book is told through 2 points of view: Lucas Vega, who's a college student doing this podcast, and Regan Merritt, who's a former U.S. Marshal. And you may be giving Regan some more time on the page. Tell us about that, Allison.
Yeah, so Regan has a second book. I just got the title from my editor right before Christmas break. They're calling it, because as you know, titles can sometimes change back and forth, and we never quite know what we're going to get. They're calling it Don't Open the Door. So something very suspenseful, and it does start very, very suspenseful. It takes place in Virginia when her former boss is murdered by a sniper, and she goes back to basically investigate his death off the record, because she's no longer a marshal and she isn't happy with the way the FBI is investigating it. The FBI has jurisdiction because the marshals don't investigate murders generally. That's not their domain. Anything involving a homicide, especially a homicide of a federal agent, would be handled by the FBI. And so she's not pleased with what they're doing. So she kind of works on her own, which is it's been fun. I'm about halfway done writing the book, and I still don't quite know how it's going to end out, which I love. I never want to know how my books end until usually about 2/3 of the way through, sometimes at the midpoint, but about 2/3 of the way through, it's like all of a sudden I go, oh, that's it. And then I can finish the book. So I'm excited about it. It starts with a murder, and that's not the only murder. So
Ooh, it starts with a murder, and that's not the only murder. Sounds like my kind of book. Am I right, friends? Oh my goodness. Heather Gudenkoff has entered the chat. Heather, welcome. So wonderful to see you here and have you here. And she says she is really looking forward to reading this, Allison.
Thank you, Heather.
Yay. And Heather is coming on the show in just a few weeks to give us the scoop on her brand new book, The Overnight Guest. Can't wait. Annissa is saying, yay for more Regan. Annissa, right? She's such a great character. I really love her. She's so strong and she's so vulnerable and she's so wounded. Won't say more about that. Bonnie saying, ooh, the new book sounds great. Bonnie, welcome to the conversation. Thank you so much for joining us. Annissa saying, this sounds like another winner. So Allison, you said just a moment ago that you like not knowing where your book is going to go. So does this mean that you are a pantser, that you follow the story wherever it leads? Give us the inside scoop on the actual, what it looks like for you to be at your desk writing these stories.
Well, I prefer to say organic writer, because to me, the story comes out organically from the characters. So I always have a premise, and I always have like this, kind of a sense of my characters. And, obviously I write a certain kind of book. I know it's going to be a thriller. I know there's going to be a murder or some other major crime. And, so the setup is usually all there, but I don't always know who the killer is. I did not know when I was writing the Sorority Murder. I kind of had a vague idea that, when she was killed 3 years ago, that she had a secret that was being silenced, essentially. And I said, but what is it? What does she know? How are they going to figure it out? Who knows what? How am I going to get that all into the story through a podcast? Are people actually going to call? Do you remember what you were doing 3 years ago? And I mean, like, so I was like thinking of all these things of how I was going to get it out. And it was basically as I was writing the characters calling in, it kind of came to me. That's why I love editing, because I could say, oh, this caller is going to say such and such a thing. Like, I saw her at the library, or I saw her there, whatever it is. I was like, oh, why is that important? Why would she be at the library? I don't know why she's there. And then I have to figure it out. And I love it. It's why I love reading mysteries. I want to figure it out. And then once I get everything down on paper, well, not literal paper, because I don't handwrite my books, I type. Once I get it down, the story's all there, and then I can go through it from beginning to end and make it flow smoothly, make sure that I have all of the, nothing too extraneous. I sometimes have a problem with repetition, so I have to go through and painstakingly look for that. And then I'll go through and make sure all the hints are there, but it's not too obvious, and smooth it all out, to the end. So I usually write the book, it's all there, but it's kind of disjointed and a little rough. And then I go through and do a really deep edit, and then I send it off to my editor. So I edit as I go. So usually things like dialogue and stuff like that is pretty clean, but then I'll do one deep edit and send it off to the editor. So it's usually a pretty clean book when I send it off, but my editor reads it, will always have questions like, this doesn't make sense, or can you elaborate on this? Or the ending was a little too short. Can you expand on this? Can you make it a little bit, draw it out a little bit, or, whatever it happens to be for the book. This one, I had a little bit more edits because it was kind of a little bit more difficult with the two timelines going with, the past and the present. I didn't do a lot in the past, but I had to make sure that it all matched up with what was going on in the present. So my editor really helped me with that to make sure it all was smooth. My next Quinn and Costa book, I wrote it, turned it in. She had basically just two, I won't call it major, but two things that I needed to fix related to the story that didn't make sense. And when she pointed them out, I go, oh, you're right. That really doesn't make sense. I better fix that. So, some books I do a little bit more edits and than others, but I'm usually by the end, I'm very happy. And I've been very blessed to have some great editors in my career. With all three of my publishers, all of my editors have been fantastic.
Oh, that's so great to know. Annissa says she is here for the high body count. Sounds like a true thriller fan to me. Darla, welcome to the conversation. She says she absolutely loves Allison Brennan. Yay. You're in the right place, Darla. Welcome to the conversation. Darla is saying she loves that you have such a creative mind. Let's pause there. Would you describe yourself as a creative person, Allison? Do you ever feel creatively blocked, or do you identify as a creative mind?
Well, I am creative in some ways. So like, I cannot draw. I mean, I cannot even make a good stick figure, but I have a daughter who's incredibly artistic. I just happen to have a way of seeing the world through stories. So if I go out and I'll see something out of place, and then my mind naturally goes, why is that out of place? What's going on? Now, of course, because I have always read mysteries and thrillers my entire life, from a very, very, very young age, I always go to, are someone having an affair, or is there a dead body, or why are they arguing, or I mean, I could any number of things. I used to write at Starbucks all the time, and I would see people, and unfortunately I had to stop writing at Starbucks because I would be too much people watching. And so I would be writing there and thinking, oh, they don't look very happy. And I realized one of the Starbucks I used to go to was a place where you would have first dates for matchups. And so they never met each other. And so I'd be watching these couples thinking, oh, they really don't like each other, or he likes her, but she just can't wait to get out of here. I wonder why. What did he say? What did he do? Does he smell? I mean, I had no idea. I was just making up all these stories. And then that's actually kind of how I came up with one of my Lucy Kincaid story ideas, was watching these meetups and thinking, you really don't know who you're meeting. And did they tell a friend they were coming to meet up with this person? Or do they just think, oh no, it's fine, yada, yada, yada. If I'm dead, they're going to trace it back to my matchmaker.com account. I don't know. But so I do see the world kind of in stories. And then I have always written. I just never got serious about it until I was 30. Kids, marriage, career, and I had to actually commit to sitting down and making the time to write.
I love that. Thank you for that inside scoop. Darla, thank you for the great comment that led to this conversation. This is very cool. Jerry would like to know, do you have a set number of hours per day or days per week that you write? What is your routine? Yeah, tell us about your daily process, Allison.
Well, I do write every day. I did take a week off at Christmas, mostly because my daughter, who lives in New York, was here. And since I only get to see her once or twice a year, I didn't want to use all that time writing. But usually I write every single day. I get up in the morning, I walk every morning. Then I have my coffee and I play games. I play Words with Friends. I have a crossword puzzle I do, and I have a Sudoku I do every single day to kind of just they're kind of mindless games, but they get your mind working as soon as you're drinking your coffee. And then sometimes if one of my kids is here, I'll watch like a sitcom or something with them. And we're talking about early in the morning, so this is like 7 or 7:30. I try to sit down at the computer by 8, and then I'll take care of all business stuff, answering emails, going on social media, all that kind of stuff. And then by 9, I had better be writing. That's kind of what I tell myself. By 9, I have to sit down and start writing. Some days I can put in, 5 to 7 hours of productive time. And other days it's 2 or 3, but I'm always at the computer for at least 6 hours. It used to be I used to write at night, not so much anymore. I think as I've gotten older, the nighttime writing has ended, but I really do try to put in the time. I put in the time, but the daily page count or word count varies. It just depends on how productive I am that day. Sometimes I could write 1,000 words and every one of them is like pulling teeth to get them down on the page, and then I'm still not happy. And then the next day I'll write 4,000 words and go, oh my gosh, this is the best chapter I've written in this entire book. So I just never know what kind of day I'm going to have.
Why do you think that is, Allison? Do you think it's just the creative spirit is flowing through you, or do you attribute it to, that I had that 4,000 word day that felt easy because I had this day prior where I struggled and then I had this mental breakthrough and that led to that? I mean, have you correlated it to anything, or you just show up and if the spirit moves you, it does? I mean, what do you think?
I think there is some truth that if you're struggling for a couple of days, it's because there's something wrong with the story. So what I usually do if I'm like struggling to put down 500 words or 1,000 words, I'll go back in the book and I'll start rereading my chapter. And usually what I find is that I've made a mistake with the character. Like I made the character do something they're not supposed to do. That's against their nature. And it's hard to write when they're fighting me every step of the way. No, I would not do that stupid thing. Why are you having me do that? That's not what I would do. And once I can see that in the story, then I go, oh, I could fix that. And then the writing flows because I'm letting the story flow organically rather than me trying to force it into what I think it should be.
Wow, I love that. I love that because I wouldn't think of it. I would blame myself. I would be like, well, I'm not doing it right, or I'm not. I mean, I need to push harder. I need to work more. Or I need to resolve this. That's so interesting. I love that you go back and then you're able to identify that. Melissa saying, hi, Sarah and Allison. Melissa is joining us from Australia, top mystery and thriller Meven member there. Melissa, always a pleasure to have you. Thank you so much for tuning in. Annissa says, oh my God, I love this question. Who was your favorite character to write in this book and why? Also, who was the hardest character? I'm dying to know.
Well, I mean, I like all my characters because I like them for different reasons. I think every character should bring something to the table. Otherwise, why have them there? I think, well, I will say probably the hardest character to write was Regan, because I had to pull back a little bit because she's no longer a US Marshal, so I couldn't have her just take over the entire investigation. It needed to really be a joint investigation with her and Lucas, and she was just basically there to support him. And that was actually really hard for me because I've written so many police procedurals, to kind of pull her back and not have her completely take over and say, "No, you're doing this all wrong. I'm going to solve this case." Um, so that was actually difficult for me. I don't know that she was a hard character. Um, she was hard in the sense that because she is so um, reserved as a human being, she's very methodical. She's very reserved, and she's not going to speak out of turn. She's never going to say something off the cuff, so to speak, like other characters might do. Like Cara Quinn in the Quinn and Costa series, she's going to say whatever she damn well pleases, whatever she wants, and she doesn't care. Regan is not like that. She is always going to think before she speaks, and she's going to think before she acts. That was sometimes hard for me because I don't always do that. So I had to really put myself in her shoes. So for me, that was hard. I liked all of my characters for different reasons, but I think one of my favorites was a secondary character, Lizzie, who was kind of she was the producer of Lucas's podcast. I kind of modeled her very teeny little bit after my daughter's best friend, who is also half Korean and also super, super smart and talks a mile a minute. And I would listen to my daughter and her best friend, and they both talk really fast, and they'd be having conversations. It was just constant words coming out. It was so much fun. So Lizzie was really kind of a favorite character. And also she's blunt, and she's funny, and she's kind, and she's so good for Lucas, who is so serious. And I just loved how she called him on a couple of things, but did it in a very nice way. And I just thought I really liked her at the end of the book.
I love the character of Lizzie for all of those reasons. And because she just is, Lucas is so sweet and so shy. And when she's finally like, "Hello, are you going to ask me out?" It's so cute and so charming. I giggled. TL says the Sorority Murder sounds like a great read. TL, it really is. I think you'll enjoy it. So grab your copy tonight. Jennifer, great question. She said, do you find writing books in a series easier than developing new characters? Very cool question for someone who has 2 series going, and this is a brand new venture.
I think, well, first of all new series begin with new characters. And so this being the first book was probably harder than writing the second book, because I already know Regan now. So putting her in the second book, it's a lot easier in the sense that I already kind of know her character. So I know how she's going to react to certain things, and I don't have to worry about that as much. I also think that writing a series where you have your core character that you already know, it is easier because, like I said, you do know them, and you can build on that foundation. But at the same time, you don't want to make them boring. You don't want to make them boring, but you don't want to throw something new and tragic at them with every single book. I've written so far 17 Lucy Kincaid books, and I didn't want every book to be something bad that happens to her. I didn't want her to be kidnapped in every book, or Sean kidnapped in every book, or, some tragic thing. I had to come up with ways that she could grow as a character and as a person without it always being focused on tragedy. So, like, for example, one subplot I had, she doesn't like her brother's girlfriend. And it took her a couple of books to realize why, and then to accept Elle for who she is. Now, Elle's a very minor character. She's only in a couple of the books, but it was something that Sean kept saying, "Well, remember, Patrick didn't really like me when we started dating either. He didn't think I was good for you." And Lucy would go, "That's not the same thing." But it really was kind of the same thing. But she couldn't see it because Patrick's her brother. And so
Right.
It took a couple of books. So I do like to be able to do things like that in a long running series, because I think it's very realistic without it being something that bad that has to happen to the character, but they could still grow over the series. However, I will also say that in every book in a series, you are developing new characters. You have new secondary characters, you have new villains. So you have to be able to develop them fully and have them come on the page and interact with your established character while keeping your established character familiar to the readers.
Ooh, I like that. Thank you for the great question, Jennifer. And thank you for that fabulous insight. Allison, Linda saying, I am sure you heard a lot in Starbucks. Hopefully we can get you back in there as soon as you can keep mining, content, and then telling us about it. Sherry would like to know, do you prefer writing standalone or series?
Well, I think series are easier in the sense that you can, like I said, you know the characters, you know the world you've already built. The first book or two are probably more difficult because you're trying to build a world that people are going to want to come back to. So you spend a lot of time doing that so that they'll want to read more books in the series. At the same time, I've written a standalone. I have an editor looking at it now. It was a really hard book to write because it has to have a concept that can stand alone, that can't really be a series, and it has to be complete. I mean, you can't have any loose ends whatsoever. You have to build an entire world like you would do in a first book in a series, but know that you're never coming back to this world. So I will say that was actually very hard, but I love the way it turned out. I'm just waiting for feedback on it.
Ooh, very cool. Thank you for the question, Sherry. Great to have you here. Leslie would like to know, who was your mystery inspiration, either an author or a character? Cool question, Leslie.
Well, like I said earlier, I've read mysteries and thrillers since I was little. I read Trixie Belden, which I don't know if everybody remembers Trixie Belden. She was younger than Nancy Drew, and it was set in Hudson on the River in New York, in this little sleepy town. And she had a farm and she had 3 brothers and she solved mysteries. And I was 8 years old. She was 13. I totally looked up to her. Then I read Nancy Drew, and then I read Agatha Christie when I was 13, because remember when I'm probably older than you, but I was born in 1969 and we did not have YA in the 1970s and 80s. There was none.
There was no YA.
No, very little. We had Lois Duncan, we had Joe Nixon Lowry, we had a few others, but really once you got done with Nancy Drew, and I was 11 and I was over Nancy Drew, my mom had all the Agatha Christie books. I read Ed McBain. I was way too young to read some of those books, but I did anyway because they were on the shelf. And then I went to Stephen King, because what else do you do when there's nothing else? And the young adult section is like one shelf as opposed to, an entire room.
Exactly. So same. I grew up reading Nancy Drew. And then when I ran out of Nancy Drew, around the same age, 11, 12, probably, my grandmother introduced me to P.D. James, which my mother was not thrilled about because it's pretty graphic. but
well, I also want to say that when I first seriously got writing, so I had all that in my background, and I've always read books and I've always read mysteries, and I've read a lot of romantic suspense. But I was on maternity leave with my son in 2001, and I was still working full time, but I had 4 months off and my 2 older girls were school aged. I was bored because I can't sleep during the day. So I started reading all these books, and there was 2 books that just jumped out at me as being basically exactly the kind of stories I wanted to write. And that is, after I read these, that's when I made the commitment that I was going to write a book. The first one was The Third Victim by Lisa Gardner. And I still love Lisa Gardner. She cannot write a bad book. She is so talented and super nice. I buy every single one of her books. I'm about 5 books behind because I can't keep up with everything else I have to do. But I love her books, and she is so talented. So I read that, and it was like, wow, that is exactly what I want to write. And it was shortly after that I read The Search by Iris Johansen. And there's a twist at the end of that book. If you haven't read that book, the heroine has a search and rescue dog, a cadaver dog. And so it's a lot about grief and about this dog and how she bonds with this dog and how they help each other. And obviously there was a lot of death and bad things that happened in the book too. But what I loved about it was there was such a twist at the end that I go, oh my gosh, this blew my mind. I love this. And that's what I want to do, is always be able to keep me on my toes and my readers on their toes, so that the ending is so satisfying that they close the book and say, that was a good book. That was a good use of the last 6, 8, 10 hours of my time.
I love that. Yeah, keeping us and yourself on your toes. Hashtag goals. Thank you, Allison, for this insight. Kathy would like to know, when writing your series, what do you do if your characters want to jump ahead of you, like way ahead, even a book or two? Give us the scoop.
Well, I do believe in following where the characters want to go. And if I'm writing something and I'm thinking, oh, I'm going to save this for a future book, I have to think, okay, why? Why can it not be in this book? And if it really is something like a completely new plot idea, like a completely new mystery that I want to put them in, then I will basically jot down maybe a paragraph or two about the idea and put it aside. I don't want to forget the idea. I usually don't, because I don't plot, so I don't usually write things down. But I have like a little notepad, here, where I will keep like little notes as I'm writing, so that I don't forget things. I say, oh, I got to remember that da 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 da, or I have to remember that here's I have that Regan has to meet with somebody and that it's super important. I don't know why it's important, but I have to remember that it's important. So I will make those little notes. So the same thing is when I get a really good story idea that I think, ooh, I really want to write that. If it's something that cannot be incorporated into the current book because it doesn't fit there, I will just write a couple paragraphs so I don't forget it, and then finish the story I'm writing.
Thank you for the question, Kathy. Allison, thank you for that inside information. Melissa would like to say, she said, I love your curiosity about all the intricate details that you need to flesh out. Allison, I love that too. Melissa, I love that you picked up on that, because Allison's excitement and energy, and yes, curiosity is the perfect word, about the book, about the characters, about these people, is so infectious and so inspiring. It's really heart-filling. Erin would like to know, Erin, this is a tough one. Who is your favorite out of all of your characters, and who's your least favorite? You're asking a mama to choose between her babies. Life is hard, and we're going to do it. So Allison, give us your choices.
I will say probably, it's really hard because obviously I have 40 books. So the Sorority Murder is my 40th book. So it's really hard. A lot of my other books, I'm going to forget they exist. I think right now, I have the most fun writing Kara Quinn's character. Whenever I'm in her head, I love it. So I enjoy that the most because, like I said, she can say whatever she wants. And that was kind of the same way with Maxine Revere. I did 5 books in the Maxine Revere series. I really loved how freeing that was, that here I had a character, she could be blunt. And, I didn't always like what she said. And I wish sometimes that she would have a little bit more tact, but it was effective. And I just loved being able to do that on the page. And so I think I won't say Kara is my favorite character, but right now she's my favorite to write. Just because, like I said, she can do so much that I can't do. She says things that I want to say. She doesn't hold back. So in the book that comes out in April that has her, she actually does hold back something, and I could feel how hard that was for her. So it was like, I get really into her character, I guess I should say. So I won't say she's my favorite, but right now I do really love writing her. I think least favorite, geez. Actually, one of my least favorite characters was a minor character in a book that I wrote a long time ago. It was the mother of a serial killer in Tempting Evil. And so he had flashbacks, and I hated her. I hated her with a passion. And I will say I did kind of model her after somebody I knew. And maybe that's why I just hated her so much. But she was really just a bad mother. And I don't say that about mothers because I think everybody parents differently and you have to let them have their, you know, their kids, not your kids. And I wouldn't want anybody telling me that I'm a screw up as a mom, and I'm not going to tell that to anybody else. But there was something an acquaintance of mine had done to their child that just grated on me, and I couldn't say anything, so I wrote it in the book. And then the kid in the book grew up to be a serial killer. I have no idea what happened to the kid that I knew, but I do know that in the book. So I really, really hated that character, and it was an old book of mine called Tempting Evil that was very interesting. I probably said too much there, but
no, I love it. Thank you. We are here for the inside scoop, Allison. That's what we live for. This is so great. Leslie is saying she remembers Trixie Belden and she loved
Yay!
Nancy Drew and Agatha. TL saying she read all of the Trixie Beldens as a kid. She loved them. Yay. Clearly we're in y'all are in the right place because we all love the same books, which is fantastic. Leslie saying she's the same age, 1969. Awesome. Woo!
Gen X.
Gen X. Kathy is saying she's so glad to hear other young teens read Agatha and others. Ellery Queen, Alfred Hitchcock magazines. Anyone? Absolutely, Kathy. Yes, you're speaking my love language. I'm just making sure I don't miss anybody's comments. Erin, follow up to her question in your answer says she wasn't expecting you to say Kara Quinn. She was expecting Max or Kane Rogan as favorites. Well.
I did mention about how Max, I loved writing Max because she is blunt and she was a very she was probably one of the most mature characters I've ever written. She was actually hard to write because I was so out of my element writing her character. Yes, I do love Kane Rogan. I will say I do love Kane. He is definitely a fun character, but he's Sean's brother, Lucy's brother-in-law. And he's fun. I remember in Cold as Ice, which is the last Lucy book I wrote, I actually had a scene and I realized it was the first time I had Kane and Lucy's brother, Jack. They both are mercenaries, but they never actually worked together on the page. And I had them doing something together and it was so much fun writing them together and realizing that they were getting too old for this. Because they're both in their mid 40s and they're like we're getting too old for this stuff.
Listen, we all get to the point where like I am too old for this stuff. Well, it's so great to see the Sorority Murder getting so many great reviews. Pop Sugar named the Sorority Murder one of the 10 best books to cozy up with this winter. And E! Online named it the 10 best mystery and thriller books of December that are giving us literal chills. So it's so great to see it resonating and to see it getting this kind of response. And of course there is many more. So do you read your reviews, Allison, or no? Do you have more strength than I do?
No, I know I shouldn't because unfortunately, usually if you get one bad review, that's the one that sticks with you. You could have 100 positive reviews, but the one that says, oh, I don't think Allison Brennan wrote that book, that kind of sticks with you. And you're like, well, why? I did write it. It was hard. So, yeah, I'll skim them. I don't pay tons of attention to them, but I'll skim over them and just, I usually, the thing is, I know what my flaws are as a writer. And I guess it does kind of sting when I see that one of those flaws mentioned in a book, thinking, damn, I thought I'd fix that one. And then you're like, but I guess I didn't. I got to do better next time. So I do recognize, I don't actually, anything that criticizes like plots and stuff like that I don't care about. It's when they comment about something I know I have an issue with, that I say, okay, I really need to focus on fixing that. But if they say, oh, I didn't like how she ended the book, or, oh, I figured out the killer on page 1, it's like, I don't care. That doesn't get to me.
So Allison, I let people submit comments in advance in the Mystery and Thriller Mavens group. And Kimmy would like to know, what is your favorite story that you have written with 40 books under your belt? What is your favorite to have written?
Oh God, that's a hard question.
That's a hard question, Kimmy.
It is a very hard question. Usually I'll be flip and say the last book I finished because when you're done with a book, before your editor sees it and you actually go, oh my gosh, this is so good. And then you realize it's not as good as you think it is when you get your editor notes. So usually it's the last book done, but honestly, that's really hard. I think one of the books, I guess I won't say it's my favorite book. Just like saying my favorite character, it's really hard. But one of the books that really stayed with me, I guess is a good way of saying it, that kind of was emotional for me to write, was The Lost Girls by one of the Lucy Kincaid books. It was right in the middle of the series. It was the 11th book of the series, but it was about a baby that was abandoned in a church, and the mother was had been trafficked. And it was very powerful, I think, one, because I was writing it largely from Lucy's point of view, and she can't have kids. So having the storyline about women that are being used to give birth was emotional for her. So it became emotional to me. I mean, I have 5 kids. And so, but I put myself in Lucy's shoes. And that was probably one of the most emotional stories I wrote. I would say probably one of my so I would say that's probably my favorite in the Lucy. In the Max series, it would probably be Abandoned, which is the last book in the Max series. Is where she finds out what happened to her mother. And what I loved about that book is that not only does she grow as a character, but it dealt a lot with family and the different kinds of families that are out there, and how Max grew up compared to how other people grew up, and how I just felt she grew so much in that book and came to so many realizations about herself and her life that I didn't want to end the series, but my publisher, they wanted more Lucy and not more Max. And so to me, it felt like a good way to end the series. And so I was very, very, very happy with that book. And so that became my favorite. And then I will say that in the Quinn and Costa series, the one that comes out in April, I love it because it starts with an explosion and 9 dead bodies. And so I was like, I saw the opening scene before I knew anything about the story, and I was like, oh, I just love that book.
Yay. Well, Sherry is saying she really loved the Max series. Yay, Sherry. Thank you. Our next comment submitted in advance in the Mystery and Thriller Maven group is actually not a question, just a comment from Gian Doherty. She said she has no questions for you, Allison, but she just wants you to know that you're one of her favorite authors ever.
Oh, thank you.
She said she reads 2 thrillers a week, and you're
awesome.
You're one of her favorites. So she wanted me to share that as well. All right, y'all. Oh, we're out of time, but I see one more question coming in. Erin saying, if I had to pick a favorite, it would be Shattered, the Lucy and Max book, getting to find out what really happened to Lucy's nephew, Justin. Your response,
Yeah.
Allison.
No, I love that book. And in fact, I recently reread it because I had to find some information in that book for another Lucy book that I was writing. And I don't remember what I write because, again, I don't plot. And I sat down looking for it, and I ended up reading the whole book. And I do really love that book because I was able to bring them together, and they're so different. They're them, Max and Lucy, that it was really fun to have them kind of butt heads a little bit, but by the end work together. That was a fun journey.
Oh, yay. I love that. Annissa saying, thank you, ladies. This was a great chat as always. Thank you, Annissa, for joining us. Thank you all for joining us. If you love mysteries and thrillers as much as we do, and clearly you do because you're in the right place, join our free Facebook group, Mystery and Thriller Mavens, where we continue the conversation about all our favorite reads about the book. So read the book, get the book. I'm going to put put the link in the comments one more time. So grab your copy tonight from Murder by the Book and then join the Facebook group to continue the conversation. Kathy's saying thank you so much. I just want to remind y'all that Allison will be back in April to give us the scoop on her next book. So we will look forward to seeing you in just a few months. TL saying thank you. This was a lot of fun. TL, great to have you. Thanks for joining us. Allison, thank you for joining us.
Thank
Always
you.
a pleasure to have you. A delight to chat. Thank you, Mystery and Thriller Mavens. Always great to see you. And I will see you all in 2 weeks. I'm off next week, but I'll see you all in 2 weeks. And we have an amazing lineup this spring, this month, this spring, and all the way into the summer. We're booked until August, so it's looking real hot. I will see you every Monday for #Mystery Monday, because Mondays can be murder.